I am Len Stellian, the Midlife Empowerment Coach, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Alice Moody and Ann Walters. Alice is a seasoned book group facilitator, writing coach, and workshop leader whose stints in publishing and secondary education laid the foundation for her true passion, inspiring aspiring writers and avid readers. Her belief in the transformative power of story serves as the underlying principle guiding her book discussions, workshops, and popular short stories live series. A lover of the beauty and power of words, Alice thrives on excellent novels, strong coffee, lively conversation, and most of all, her two beautiful children. Now let's turn to Ann. Ann Walters is a longtime bookseller at Lake Forest Bookstore in Lake Forest, Illinois, and a book group facilitator who writes a popular book review blog, Books on the Table, belongs to too many book clubs, and gets a huge kick out of recommending the right book to the right person. She starts her day with a poem, ends her day with a novel, and never leaves the house without a book. The mother of 3 grown children, and loves introducing her grandchildren to the magic of books. So Alice and Ann, welcome. I have been so looking forward to hearing from you both today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you as you talk to us about some of the best books for us in the summer of 2021. What should we be reading?
Well, thank you so much for having us. First of all, we're happy to be here. And Ann and I, how many years has it been? Like 3 years, 4 years?
At least 3.
3 years, formed this business between the covers book discussions. And this is what we love to do, recommend books. So we each have a few titles. The first title, I don't know if you can see this, is by J. Courtney Sullivan, who is one of my favorite writers. She is known for, she wrote a book called Maine, another one called Saints for All Occasions. This is her 5th title. And she is a master, at least in my mind, of exploring human moments in a broader social context. And this book, there are really 2 protagonists in this book. The first is a new mother named Elizabeth, and she's recently moved with her husband and her young daughter from Brooklyn to Philadelphia. And she's an accomplished journalist in her own right. And she's working on a novel, it's a novel. She's working on a novel, and she hires a college-aged babysitter named Sam to care for her young daughter. And it's really about the friendship that develops between Elizabeth and Sam. And so what's interesting is, J. Courtney Sullivan explores how these friendships, how relationships form across generational lines, also how they form across socioeconomic lines. And while it's definitely somewhat of a lighter read, it really delves into some serious topics and some of the themes that she introduces, such as power dynamics, class, privilege, the great American divide that we have, are really thought-provoking, and I think it's quite a satisfying read. So again, J. Courtney Sullivan's, it's already out in paperback.
Oh, so this was published, is it like last year, or was it from?
No, it's relatively recent. Some books these days actually are going straight. They're not necessarily.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was published in 2020, so it probably did come out in hardcover, but it's, I don't think it got as much publicity as maybe it merited.
No, a lot of books do better in paperback, and this is one of them, I think.
I bet. Well, the topic sounds so pertinent, certainly relationships and navigating the divides, and, how different people can come together, and what's the nature of relationship when you come from such different backgrounds. So that sounds really interesting.
It's really interesting. It's actually the only soft cover that oh no, that's not true. It's one of 2 soft covers that we're recommending today.
Right.
So, okay.
Okay, next is The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. And this is a book that takes place on Cape Cod, which right away makes it kind of a quintessential summer book. And it's really a page turner. And this is one that I read several months ago. Was lucky to get a pre-publication copy of it. And as soon as I finished it, I thought, wow, this one's going to be big. This is going to be very popular this summer. And lo and behold, it's one of those that was picked up by Reese Witherspoon's book club. Kind of had all over it. It features a strong woman. Her name is Elle Bishop. And she has just arrived at the beginning of the book in her family's summer home on the Cape. It's called the Paper Palace because actually some of the little cabins there are made out of paper. And she is reuniting with her old boyfriend. And lo and behold, and this happens in the first 3 pages of the book, so I'm not giving anything away, she sleeps with him, with her husband inside in another room. And you think, whoa, what is wrong with this woman? What is going on here? Well, it delves back into their childhoods together. They shared a very dark past, which you learn about, and you cannot stop turning the pages of this book. It goes back into the 70s and 80s in New York City and the sort of unsupervised sort of gossip girl life that upper class children were leading at the time, with divorced parents that maybe weren't overseeing things the way they should have as they traveled to Europe. But then it goes back to the present, and she eventually has to make a very big choice. But I've recommended this to a lot of people, and the comment that I've gotten from all of them is, number one, that they couldn't stop reading it. They stayed up late or just kept reading this book, or that they thought it was darker than they thought it was going to be kind of a fun read, which it is, but there's a very dark undercurrent here and a lot to talk about. It would be kind of a fun book club one, I think.
And no pun with the word undercurrent.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some drama.
There's a scene that occurs in the water.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to make a movie of it.
Oh, it's got that, if Reese bought the rights
to
it.
About the ending when you're like, do I throw the book?
Oh my gosh. The ending is one that people will discuss indefinitely because you don't know whether it's perfect or whether you should be furious at the top or take you in the direction that she takes you in.
Wow. Yeah. I can see the next, what was Reese's, Little Fires Everywhere, or one of those, like the next TV series.
Yes, this would be perfect for that. You can just see it.
Right.
You're casting it as you read it.
Right. Oh, awesome.
All right. So the next story is called The Push by Ashley O'Drain, who's a first-time writer from Canada. And I'm going to put a caveat out there that if you are pregnant, which I don't know how many of your midlife transitions.
Not that many. Yeah.
Not that many. Or
daughters
I was going to say, or if you know someone pregnant, especially for the first time, do not give this book to them. Now, that said, this is a book, talk about not put down. I am not going to make the claim, hopefully the author is not watching us right now, that this is highbrow, intellectual, deep, provocative stuff here. But what I will say is you cannot stop following this story. It's almost like an accident. You drive by and you know that shot you shouldn't be looking, but you're like, oh, I got to see what happens. So The Push is being marketed as a thriller. I think it's more of a deep psychological study. So it's of a genre about motherhood going wrong. And there are two funny terms for this genre: bad seed suspense or mum noir. So this book fits into that genre to some degree, but it's actually really fascinating. It's about a woman named Blythe Connor, and we get her whole backstory. And she has a daughter, Violet. And from the get-go, she senses something is wrong with Violet. And her husband, who's aptly named Fox, does not believe her, and she'll say things and he'll tell her, are you really looking at this the right way? And so there's a bit of that gaslighting going on. But then as the reader or the listener of this story, you're wondering, wait, should I be trusting this narrator? Is this actually what's happening? So you're really not sure what is going on, where the truth lies. This is just a one sitting, can't stop reading. Oh my gosh. I also don't recommend you read this book unless you have someone that you can talk to after, because it's, even if they haven't read it, you're going to need to get some things off your chest after you read this.
Wow.
So it is so, I mean, I love this book. Someone recommended it to me. I read it. I thought, oh my, what am I reading? And then I'm like, what am I reading? What? And it just kept snowballing. I will say this. I want to read something the author wrote. She says, there's still a lot of remaining taboos about motherhood. But I think one of the biggest ones is the idea that you don't like your child, or you can't find love for them, or they've done something that you cannot forgive or you cannot look past. You brought this child into the world and you're responsible for raising them. But what do you really owe them? And how far does that obligation go?
Mhm.
That was a question I found fascinating to explore. And you even think about in our society, if you see someone pregnant, we say, oh, you're going to make such a great mother.
Yeah.
There's such a onus that it's going to be this amazing experience. And this is not about postpartum depression. This is like a long-term disconnect and what happens. And as you said, the Paper Palace, the ending, this ending is so perfect. You will not be throwing the book. You will not be questioning what you just read. You will be extremely satisfied, I think, with the ending, which is hard to say for a lot of books. So,
Wow. It sounds really like an interesting exploration that really hasn't been, I don't think, I mean, you're much better versed than I am, but it's not a top, it's like, it is a bit of a taboo.
yeah.
But you might not, have this full on love or, passion for your child. And maybe sometimes, you can't like take it anymore. So that's going to be interesting.
Yep. So that was the push.
The next one is a memoir, and this is Finding Freedom, A Cook's Life, Remaking a Life from Scratch by Erin French. And Erin French is a cook. She does not call herself a chef. She calls herself a cook because she hasn't been classically trained. And she runs a restaurant in Maine, in rural Maine, called The Lost Kitchen. And anybody who's part of the foodie world has heard of this restaurant. It's impossible to get a reservation there. They don't take reservations by phone. They don't take reservations over the internet. Every year she has a lottery and people mail in a postcard.
Wow.
And she gets 60,000 postcards a year. They're only open, I think, 3 or 4 nights a week. It's a price fixed menu with whatever they happen to have that day. You don't get to choose anything. And this is the story of how she came, and she has an all-female staff, which is interesting. And if you liked like The Glass Castle or Educated, memoirs of people growing up under really difficult circumstances who are able to overcome that and become really successful through grit and talent, this is a great book for you, because she starts off as I said, in rural Maine. She's living in pretty dire circumstances with her parents, who are not necessarily the best parents, I wouldn't say necessarily abusive, but it's not a good home. She's forced to work from a young age for about 14 hours a day, almost like a slave, in her dad's diner, which is where she learns how to cook. They won't pay for her to go to college. She gets pregnant out of wedlock. And eventually, as she makes a very bad marriage to an abusive man, things are not going her way. But she, as I said, through sheer determination and a lot of hard work, she makes this successful restaurant happen. And she's written cookbooks now, and she's an amazing person. And it was a story that I found so inspiring and so interesting. I loved all the talk about the food and the foraging and the woods for the mushrooms, and how she comes up with her recipes, and how she learned about wine, and all these things that were totally foreign to her and her upbringing. It's really, everyone I have recommended this to has loved this book. And if you're a foodie or a cook, you'll love it twice as much. But it's an interesting human story in addition to that.
And super inspirational. And I know so many women, who follow me and are in my community resonate with those stories of women who have had to overcome so much. And a lot of them have also, you know, struggled in various different ways. I mean, this author sounds like this cook sounds like she really has. And wow, it sounds like an incredible story. I think anybody who's into food and, you know, love the all female employees, and yeah, it sounds amazing.
Well, she's all about empowering women, and she talks a lot about
Yeah.
how she trains people who maybe had no skill, but she teaches them the restaurant business and how they build confidence through that. So it's really interesting from that. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay, so the last book I'm recommending is titled People We Meet on Vacation. And this was published this year. It went straight to paperback, but Emily Henry, the author, wrote last year's Beach Read, which was quite popular. Did you read Beach Read?
I did. Yeah. It was so clever and so fun. Yeah.
And I think clever is the operative word. It's just witty, clever, sharp writing. So if you like that type of banner in a book, this one has it in spades. People We Meet on Vacation is your classic romantic comedy, if you will. It's about Alex and Poppy. Poppy's the girl, Alex is a boy. They meet in college, and it turns out they didn't know each other before college, but they're from the same hometown in Ohio. And I guess Poppy needed a ride back home, and there was a bulletin board, probably back in the days before social media, and someone had, you know, offering a ride or a ride. So anyway, their first date, if you will, actually that's not true. They met at orientation, but then they have this time together on the drive at the end of freshman year. And they develop this friendship, and they're classic opposites. She's the wild, carefree, adventurous, travel loving. She winds up becoming a writer, a blog. She writes a travel blog. And Alex is sort of the, you know, khaki wearing, buttoned up, respectable. I wouldn't say nerdy, but maybe the nerdier one of the two. Anyway, he becomes a high school English teacher. And what's so great about this story is it shows their friendship developing over all these years, but the construct is really interesting. So it alternates between present and past, each chapter, but every summer they go on a vacation together. And so all of the chapters are sort of their stories every summer, alternating. So you know something happens, but then we keep going back. And actually, I was getting a little sad towards the end of the book. So I'm like, oh, we're on like year 2. We've only got one more summer to go. Wait, I need to keep hearing their story. But it's just such an amazing read. And I guess I would equate it to like a Harry Met Sally in literary form. So the ending is somewhat predictable, but just the journey to get there is so much fun. It's a perfect summer book. And again, it's called People We Meet on Vacation.
Fun. Thank you.
So the last book that we're going to talk about is The Souvenir Museum by Elizabeth McCracken. And this is a book of short stories. And my experience when I recommend short stories to people is they most of the time say, oh no, I don't like short stories. Well, I am here to tell you, you need to give them another try if that's your feeling, because I love short stories. Alice is going to talk to you a little bit about her love of short stories, but they're perfect for the summer, I think. They're perfect anytime, but it's just wonderful to have a book of short stories by your bed or in your beach bag, and you can just dip into it. And each story in this book is just perfect. Each one is a little gem. They go all over the map. There's one that takes place in Scotland at an island where a family is going to see puffins, and more happens in the 15 pages of this story than happens sometimes in a 300-page novel. There are no wasted words. And it's just so satisfying to read something like that. You've actually finished it, you loved it, you can go over it in your mind, and then the book is waiting for you with the next story. And Elizabeth McCracken is a master of the short story. As I said, every single one is a little jewel. If you want to start with short stories, this would be a great one to start with. And then maybe you'll find that you actually like short stories, because for some reason people, I don't know why, but they think that they're going to be difficult, maybe because we had to study them in school, kind of like poetry where you had to sort of analyze things too much. You don't need to do that with these. You just read them, enjoy them, and they make you think.
I guess for me, the shorts, that my issue, and Alice knows this with short stories, has been that it leaves me wanting more, which I guess from a writer's perspective may not be bad, but from a reader's, it's kind of like, but then what happens to these people? And like, just as you kind of start falling in love or hate or whatever, have strong feelings about some of the characters, and then they go away and you're like, wait, are you gonna, like what else is gonna happen?
Well, then you need to go to a book of linked, like you need to do like an Olive Kittredge or something like that. There's plenty of books of linked short stories, or even go back to J.D. Salinger, and then you have Franny and Zoe, they keep appearing. But sometimes it's just kind of fun. You just kind of wonder whatever happened to them. And it's amazing that somebody can bring a character that much to life.
Well, that is amazing. I mean, I think there's some saying somewhere about it, how much harder it is to write, write in a short edited form than like to write a long piece about something, right? I mean, you are really parsing words, you are really choosing carefully, and and what happens and everything, and just 15 pages to develop a character and have, something happen in that span is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't have time. You think, oh, I don't have time. I only have this much time. I'm not going to pick up my book. So I'm going to scroll through Instagram. Yeah. Well, you could read a short story in that time.
Yeah, it sounds like exactly what. So, and it's interesting. I mean, it was thanks to Alice, who has a fabulous short story program. I would love to hear more about, for our audience to hear more about Alice, because I did kind of shift my tune a little bit after I experienced Alice's program, and just how much you can get out of a short story. And boy, it's rich for discussion, right? It's not like, okay, well, it wasn't a full-length work, so we don't have a lot to talk about. On the contrary. So maybe you could talk a little bit, Alice, about the short story program that you run.
Absolutely. So it's called Short Stories Live, and it's part performance, part discussion, but people love it because unlike a book group, you don't have to do anything in advance. You just show up. For years before the pandemic, I did it at Writers Theater, which is a theater in Glencoe, if anyone's local in the Chicago area. And I would choose either a classic or contemporary short story. Maybe it would take half an hour to read. Bless you. And this phenomenal actress named Kate Black Spence would read the story, bring it to life. And my tagline is simply show up, hear a story, and join the conversation. And I think that frustration that you just alluded to, that sometimes people, or that you alluded to, I'm sorry, Ellen, about like, wait, I just got into these characters, or wait, I want to know this, or wait, why did this? What makes Short Stories Live such a unique program isn't just that someone's bringing a story to life, but that then you're there with other people who've just in real time experienced the same story. You can all hear the same words and interpret them so differently. We delve into such important topics, ideas, everything under the sun, and it's so much fun. In a way, I equate it to like story time for adults, because how often do we ever have anyone reading to us unless we're taking a walk, listening to a book on tape, but it's not a shared experience. So it's similar to going to a play, watching it, but then you have all these people around that you get to discuss it. And so I facilitate a discussion. And we're resuming in person in September at Writers Theater. But what I learned during the pandemic, it works online as well. So on Thursdays this fall, regardless of where you live in the country, you can be part of this 8-week Short Stories Live, where on Thursday afternoons, you log in, you listen to the story, we have a discussion, and you get a PDF, you get a hard copy of the story as well to keep. So it's just great. We did it, Ellen. We did Stone Mattress by Margaret Atwood.
Yeah. And, I had Alice come and do this for a group of women in midlife and beyond. And actually, I love the fact that Alice chose a story that was very relevant to us as women of a certain age. And the actress was amazing. The discussion was so lively, and and different opinions. And it really was such a wonderful way to gather together. In our case, it was in person before the pandemic, but I could see how this would work great, just like this, with all of us looking at each other on a screen. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I know the reviews were phenomenal. So it was really a great way to gather. And yes, not to have to read a book for, because I like to choose my own books. So the reason I'm not in a book club is because I don't want somebody telling me what book I need to read. I see this, I want to read that, I want to, and so here, the fact that you come, you don't need to bring anything, just bring yourself. And the whole thing is like one whole package. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
great. And it's
You-
a
you
surprise.
can.
I've done it. I love it. And you get a surprise.
So
You don't
much.
know what you're going to hear. So you
Right.
want, what will
Yeah.
it be? But
I
it's-
love that it's a surprise. Yeah, no, that's really, really fun. But you always choose such wonderful stories, and and the actress is always amazing. So that's been quite the experience. And I know the two of you now have a subscription that you're running together. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yes. Here we've got a little something we can hold up.
I don't know, it
People can
might-
see. Maybe
It might be a little
Talking books, we can see it. Yeah.
So Talking Books with Alice and Anne, and actually the word surprise is a perfect link.
Yes.
It's a subscription series where every other month you get a surprise book in the mail, one carefully curated by us. And then the month that you don't get that book in the mail, you get a Zoom link and you watch Anne and I sit back and chat about the book. We start this September and we're fashioning ourselves the Siskel and Ebert of the literary world. So fortunately, I think most of your audience knows who that is. I've told some of I work with students on college essays and they're like, Siskel, Ebert, what's that mean? Who are they?
Well, everyone our age immediately knows who
We know.
who's Siskel and who's Ebert. We haven't quite worked
Right.
that.
Do you give thumbs up and down, or I'm assuming all of yours are thumbs up?
Surprise is coming
we
with
can't
how we're
tell
gonna run this.
Yeah, we can't tell you anymore.
I would think they're both thumbs up or we wouldn't be sending
Yeah,
the book
No,
out.
you're like, I just made you read this terrible book, so we hate it. There you go.
They're going to be books that we love, but we think that there are issues in it that we can talk about.
Chat about.
So we might,
Oh.
we're not going to agree on everything because that would be boring, but it won't be, there'll be wonderful books. That's what we can promise.
So there are books that come to you in the mail in hard copy. And
Yes.
how do you, is this targeted to any particular audience? Is this open to anyone and everyone? I mean, how do you choose the books when you've got, is it like just anybody?
It's open to anybody. We're hoping that it might be something that, say, a mother and daughter could do together.
Ah,
It's somebody in the same, maybe a husband and wife could do it.
yeah.
together. So we're trying to choose books that we think maybe might be off people's radar at this time. So it might be something, it's not going to be something like The Paper Palace, for example.
Right.
That would
Not off the New York Times bestseller list. It's
Right.
not going to be, yeah.
So it's something a little bit offbeat and that we think has broad appeal to a lot of different readers. Those are kind of the parameters, I
Yeah.
would say.
And we've already had a lot of people buy gift subscriptions. Like it's just a great gift to give.
Oh,
someone.
yeah.
You'll be getting this book in the mail every other day. You can watch people discuss this book.
The other month. Yeah.
Yeah,
every other
did I say every other day?
Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah,
that would be
that'd
a
a lot
really
of that would be
and
a lot
it
of-
Bucks.
very expensive series to join. So no.
Yes, right.
Sorry. Clearly my love of coffee, I needed more of it. But the other thing I would say is facilitators who lead a lot of discussions for different book groups, we're constantly being asked, well, what do you think? What's your opinion? And as I would hope a good facilitator would do, they would say, wait a minute, I'm just here for you to inspire a good conversation, not to share how I feel. And yet the question always comes back to, what do you think? And so this is sort of a chance. Not everyone wants to be in a book group and give their opinion and feel on the spot. So this is really a chance, not that you can't submit questions in the chat for us to address. We'll have a part of the discussion will be that, but a lot of it is just our thoughts about the way the story is written and the tone and the characters and everything else that goes on.
Yeah, we try, we both try to be quiet during a discussion we kind of bring up a topic or a question and then let it go from there. And I think that's the sign of a good discussion. This we can just talk to our heart's content.
Well, for an hour, it's an hour.
Yes.
So the best thing about the Zoom discussion is it will be recorded. So it's always the first Monday of the month at 7 p.m. every other month. Central time. But if you have something going on that Monday evening, you can get a recording of the discussion, of the chat.
You're right. That's awesome, because then, you can really watch it anytime and enjoy the banter back and forth between the two of you. I mean, I'm assuming sometimes you guys are not, like Siskel and Ebel, are not always in agreement with, everything. So that makes it interesting.
Definitely.
And you can be anywhere in the country and do it too. So say you have a friend that your friend is in California, you're in New York, it would be fun to do that and then compare notes.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And boy, you guys are always coming up with very cool ideas around books. So thank you for sharing that with my audience. And I'm going to make sure to put the links to your individual websites and programs, and certainly this subscription program, in the comments on the live, so everybody can enjoy those. And just so appreciate you being here and sharing these phenomenal I don't know if they're all beach reads, but summer reads for all of us. So thank you so much for that. And thanks to everybody for watching. And don't forget to check out the links I'll be posting. And if you enjoy these videos, please watch for more coming weekly. Until then, be well and stay safe. And thank you again, Alice and Ann.
For having us.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.